four-time Emmy-nominated producer, Frank Pace, with retired New York City firefighter and Vietnam vet, Billy O'Connor.
My brother Frank, how are you, pal? How's everything today?
You sleeping better these days? New president?
Well, I don't wake up in the middle of the night with consternation, but I mean, he's got a long, long road to hoe, man. That's for sure.
Consternation, is that when you have tapping?
That's why I can't go to the bathroom. I get consternation. He's got a long road to hoe, man. I don't really see a lot of help coming from across the aisle. I mean, it's nice, the brotherhood idea, and don't be with malice towards none. But I think we're so divided. It's going to be, like you said, in our lifetime, we might not even see it go back to the way it should be.
Where's Derek? Derek, where are you? There you are. Oh,
there he is.
Gangster thing going, huh?
What's going on, fellas?
Got the gangster thing going on, huh?
Yeah, I sent some of these in the mail for you guys, so you should get them tomorrow. I want to see what you look like.
Is that right?
I got my George Lopez gangster hat.
Oh, yeah?
Yep. GANS.
I look like a gangster from the 20s. Look like a newsboy. Get it here. Get your times. Get it here. I like the lid, man. That looks good, Derek.
Thank you. Actually, I got to make a little change here. Hang on one second.
What color is that? Orange?
Orange. This is yellow, my friend.
I can't see.
You can't see this?
He's as colorblind as I am.
So
worse.
Wow.
What color is it?
It's yellow.
Yellow.
It's sort of like
the streak down my back.
No, you're a tough guy. Come on.
That's a small fault in a good man, Frank. No big deal.
Yeah. So we have
cautious. You're not yellow. You're cautious.
Yeah, we got Paul Virzi on today. Why don't you tell us a little about Paul, but not too long, Billy. Just
a quick, brief thing, and then they'll meet him. Is that it?
Yes. Well, then
you're trying to say that I only talk in 1,000-word blocks. Is that what you're trying to tell me?
Yeah.
You just want me to say a few syllables, utter a few adjectives, don't get carried away?
Yes.
Virzi is touring headliner right now. He's had great success selling albums as a stand-up comic. He's also doing a podcast with Bill Burr. He started out really...
That's fine. That's fine. You don't have to tell me how he started out. Let him tell that. You gave us a good background of who he is.
He's a fine comedian, and he's an even better guy. You're going to like the guy because you're a guinea from Scarsdale. He's a guinea from Westchester. You guys are in love good.
I'm not from Scarsdale. But don't go into that. We're going to go into that when
he comes on, he'll talk to us.
Yeah, if you let him.
Actually, I have some questions for him about The Sopranos.
Good. So,
Derek, you gonna let him talk to me like that?
Save them all.
I think you can handle yourself, Billy. You're pretty good.
All right, fair enough.
Yeah. You've been around the block.
He's a great comic. We're gonna have a lot of fun with him today. So, what else is going on in the world out there, Frankie, my boy?
It's snowing by you. How much snow?
We're supposed to get 20 inches. 20 inches. I would be on a plane and in Florida within the hour if it wasn't for this bloody plague. I swear to God, I'd be gone.
My wife was saying, lucky you don't have to drive down the hill today to come here.
Well, I could get there, but then I wouldn't be able to get back. So, lucky you. And you'd be stuck with me over the weekend.
And you couldn't stay with me.
Why is that?
Because you're not welcome.
Wow.
After
all these years.
Valuables, it'd be okay for the weekend. If you have any valuables, I don't know,
From the shady knoll.
There's no way I would have got back up the mountain.
I fire from the shady knoll, pal. You know what that reference is for, Derek?
The shady knoll? No, I don't know that reference.
Firing from the shady knoll. You don't know that reference. Tell him, Billy.
Shady knoll. John F. Kennedy's assassination. No.
Oh, okay. Well,
yep.
That's all.
The guns came from behind the shady knoll.
There were multiple shady
supposedly,
knolls in that
from the magic
assassination.
bullet.
Yeah.
You know, Lenny Bruce. Was it Lenny Bruce? Yeah, I think it was Lenny. No, it wasn't Lenny. Yeah, it might have been Lenny Bruce. Did a bit about Kennedy's assassination, which, of course, in 1962, that was really risky stuff to do on stage. You know what I mean? Nobody was making jokes about the assassination.
63, November 63.
63. And Life magazine had run a picture sequence of the assassination.
Right.
And of course, after Kennedy got shot, his head, exploded like a watermelon. And Jackie Kennedy freaked and was trying to get out of the car, and a Secret Serviceman pushed her back in the car.
She was trying to get a piece of his brain.
I think she was scrambling, and I don't blame her. I mean, look, any woman, any man sitting next to somebody who just got his head blown off is going to evacuate the scene. But what Life magazine did was they put a headline up: "Gallant Jackie Kennedy tries to protect her husband with her body," which was, complete bullshit. That didn't happen. But I mean, I'm not knocking Jackie Kennedy. Anybody would have been in the same situation. So Lenny Bruce said what they should have said was, "Jackie Kennedy hauls ass to save ass." That should have been the headline. But that was risky stuff back in 63.
Wow.
I mean, it was like doing you don't do 9/11 jokes even now. I see a guy fooling around with 9/11. I walk out of the comedy club. I don't think it's anything to make light of.
What? You get offended by something?
Yeah, it's hard to believe, but yeah, I don't.
Wow.
Well, that's still got a real sour.
And it's as personal as it is to all of us. It's even more personal to you.
Yeah. Exactly. It's like I said, comedy's comedy, and I don't think anything should be off limits. Like I had a girl ask me one time, because when I was on stage, when I was doing a lot of comedy, I was pretty dirty, as you well know, Frank, and I'd talk about anything. But I had a girl ask me, "Do you do rape jokes?"
How old was this? You had a girl ask you, or you had a woman ask you?
Well, she was about 40. For me, that's a girl. When you're 72, she's a girl. So I had about a 40-year-old woman said to me, "You don't do rape jokes, do you?" And I said, "Honey, let me tell you something. I'm Irish. We don't even understand rape. The Catholic Church has us so screwed up sexually. We have enough difficulty having sex when both parties are willing. We don't even get rape. I don't even understand. What are you, crazy? Rape jokes. I only tell jokes about what I understand." But that's kind of risky stuff that Bruce did back then and there.
Yeah.
And how do we get into the Kennedy assassination? Oh, the grassy knoll.
Grassy knoll. Yeah. So, why don't you tell me one of your tall tales?
Wait, I got a couple
tall
questions.
Tale. Wait, tall tale. Huh?
Eric's got a couple questions. Let's listen
to Eric's questions.
Well, maybe this is not appropriate because you guys don't want to talk about politics, right?
No, you can talk about politics.
Yeah, we can go there. We all got opinions. It doesn't mean that we're right about it, but we definitely got opinions.
What do you guys think about the guy who was poisoned in England by the Russians, and now he went back to Russia and was arrested? Navalny. You know about this guy?
Yeah.
I also know that they're having protests all through Russia right now because they support the guy, right?
Yeah.
You see the snowball? You see everybody throwing snowballs at the Russian cops? Holy shit!
Yeah, that's pretty crazy. Like
that's
right? Different times.
Yep. The worm's starting to turn a little bit. Probably about 50 years from now, it'll be good.
I don't think Putin's going to let that stand. I mean, I was in China, I guess about 10 years ago, and it was one of the wildest trips I was ever on. I mean, I'm definitely going to go back. It was a remarkable trip, and I've been through Asia. I've been to Thailand and Laos, and
on our money.
I'm sorry?
On our money.
Wow, Frank's counting every dollar.
Hey, they told me they're going to give me a blue suit for nothing. All I had to do was sign for 4 years. They gave me a blue suit for nothing. So I was in China, and I was with my girlfriend at the time, and we're at the Emperor's Palace. And I'll show you what an authoritarian government is like. In China, they have like the red hot stove theory. In other words, you touch something, you judge up like this, you get burnt. That's the way it is across the board. I don't give a shit if you're the premier or you're a guy on the street. There is no crime in China. I swear to God. You can walk around the back alleys with $100 bills coming out of your pocket. There's no crime because the punishment is swift. It's the same. So I'm in front of the Emperor's Palace, and I see a couple of guards, and they got the guns and the military straight, stiff. And I go to take my camera, and I go to take a picture of him, and the guy just looks at me and goes, and I went,
Okay.
no. And he went, and I said, don't worry, scammer away. Russia's like that, I would imagine. I've never been to Russia. But you don't fool around. When they tell you no, it's no. There's no like, what about my rights? You got no rights. You just do as you're told.
Well, I was there 3 times in '88, so I saw the evolution of something. It was the evolution of perestroika, I think, and it was pretty bad. It was pretty.
You were in Moscow with Tyson, with the head of the Clash show, right?
Right, that's correct. I was there
and you were there 3 times that year.
3 times in 1988. That's correct.
And the cuisine left something to be desired, from what I understand.
Yeah, well, if you get used to eating sardines inside Jello, you'd be. You probably like sardines, so. Billy, do you like?
I tell you what, 2 things I can't handle: sardines and anchovies. Guys put anchovies on their pizza, and I go like, "Whoa, man, how you doing?"
It's better than guys that put pepperoni. I mean pineapple on their pizza.
What do they call the Italians when they put? They call it what? A leech? They call it when they put anchovies on the pizzas. What do they call it? A leech?
Yeah, something like that.
A leech, right?
Yeah.
Can you eat it?
No.
Well, a lot of real Italian guys, they love it.
I know.
I can't handle anchovy. But I tell you what, I would put pineapple or watermelon or strawberries or anything on my pizza if you're getting that fast food pizza. Like if you're getting food pizza from Domino's, yeah, pineapple. Anything to kill the taste of that garbage. Yeah. Yeah. I'd put boiled potatoes on it. I'm Irish. I'd put anything on it.
And now a word from our sponsor, Domino's.
Exactly.
What's the other fast food pizza joint? Not Domino's, the other one.
Oh, what's the
Little Caesars?
Little Caesars. That was
I mean, all of that. That's garbage.
That was garbage. The Detroit Tigers. What about the guy? Who's the guy that sponsors? The guy from Kentucky. That Shaq bought him out. Oh shit! Come on, Derek.
The guy from Kentucky. What are we talking about? He bought out pizza.
Yeah, he got thrown out for being a racist, and now Shaq.
Papa
John.
Papa John's.
Yeah, Papa John's. He got blown out for being a racist. Shaq stepped in and became owner of it. Now Papa John's is going through the roof again.
Yeah,
but really?
I mean, I think the guy is still, he's not at the helm of the company, but he still has some ownership.
Yeah.
But see, it's very telling that neither of the 3 of us could even remember the name of Papa John's.
Yeah, but 2 of us are old.
Yeah, but there's no way you're ordering that kind of pizza. There's no way I'm ordering that kind of pizza.
No, of course not.
I'm not getting pizza out of a fast food joint. There's no way.
Well, I think what that means, Billy, is your opinion doesn't matter.
Well,
that doesn't matter, but he's not going to order a Polly-O pizza, that's for sure.
Exactly. That's a Polly-O pizza. That's a real bullshit pizza.
Yep.
And you know what? I mean, there's people that think you can't even get a good pizza in Jersey, which I disagree with. I think there's good pizza in Jersey, but it's tough to get good pizza out of New York. It really is. And that sounds arrogant. And, but I think it's the bagels and the pizza in New York are better because of the water. I think, the water's really good in New York.
I disagree.
I disagree with that also.
Really?
Yeah.
That's a wives' tale. That's an old wives' tale.
Yeah.
I just think.
Why, you've had really good pizza out here, better than New York?
Well, better's relative. I can't carry that taste with me for 3,000 miles, but I've had good pizza out here for sure.
Yeah.
I've had good bagels out here. Not nearly as good as I had in Queens when I was doing Murphy Brown, but I've had good bagels. I don't eat
but
those.
not nearly as good.
Well, I don't eat those bagels because they have 450 calories, and then you smear cream cheese on them. It's like 600-700 calories. Shit, who?
Frank.
Well, I know you hollow
I hate
out.
to break this to you. But your modeling career is over.
Are you kidding?
Don't worry about the body, Frank.
Look, you know what? I've had enough of you. Why don't you introduce the Paul Virzi comedy bit that we've got queued up for the people? Then let's bring Paul on.
When they talk about religion, they talk about two main characters, Jesus and Moses, right? That's like the star and co-star. The part of the story I find funny is about St. Peter at the pearly gates. Now they say whenever somebody dies, the first person you see is St. Peter at the pearly gates, and he greets you through the gates of heaven for eternal peace. Whenever you die, St. Peter, pearly gates, eternal peace. So then I had to Google how often people die. And it comes out to one every 1.7 seconds, somebody dies. That means this guy, Peter, doesn't get a break for eternity. This guy's got the worst fucking job in heaven forever. And he was excited when he heard he was getting the Gates gig, right? He's like, oh, the big man's giving it to me. He was walking around with his robe a little tighter. But then he gets there the first day on the job. And he's like, welcome to eternal peace. Welcome to eternal peace. Welcome to eternal peace. Woo. Welcome to eternal peace. Welcome to eternal. I think I made a mistake. Welcome to eternal. Hey, is Jesus back there? Man, can I talk to him for a second? Welcome to eternal peace. Oh, I'm having a panic attack. Welcome to eternal peace. Jesus Christ, can you get out here for a second? Welcome to eternal peace. I swear on his father, get him out here. I'm freaking out. I'm having a panic attack. Is there a fucking tsunami? Welcome to eternal peace. What happened? Get him out here. I need water, so I'm freaking out. Welcome. I'm sorry, so I'm having a bad day. You know what? Yours was worse. Yours was worse. Welcome to eternal peace. That was not cool. Oh, Jesus. Listen, man, listen, can I get like a 5-minute cigarette? I didn't. No, I need I'm freaking out here. I need a water or something. I just didn't know. And Jesus is like, no, fuck you. You knew what the job entailed. I like to talk to him whenever it is I get there, just about how bad the job's been. Be like, Peter, can I talk to you for a second, man? You guys go ahead of me. Go ahead of me. Hey, dude, how long has it been, man? This has got to suck, dude. How long you been here? And just have him totally take a step back, put his head down and confide, be like, yeah, I didn't expect this. I think Moses fucked me on this one, to be honest with you.
Hey, Paul, how are you, pal? Good to see you again. Been a bit.
Billy, yo, man. Good to be here. Thanks for having me, buddy.
Are you kidding me? I'm delighted to have you, man. We just, that's Frank Pace, my partner.
I was going to say, we don't get a mention, nothing, just
right. I'm going to give you a mention now, Derek, if you stop running your yap, you hump. Derek Harris.
Oh, something a little brave today, huh? You tried a little longer, huh? So now you got your friend in?
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
Paul, before you came on, we showed the clip of you doing St. Peter, with the busy St. Peter, which is a great bit I love. I also like the bit you do when you say, come on, man, look at this face. Look at this face. Tell me you don't think it should belong with pizza flour on top of it. Come on.
Yeah, man. You know what's crazy about the St. Peter joke? The St. Peter joke came about in an unbelievable way. So when I was running a material for I'll Say This, the special, I would always just put ideas in the iPhone, right, in the notes. And I have nothing to do this night, right? I'm supposed to be home with the kids. And somebody says to me, there's a guy that owns a bar in Manhattan. He'd love for you to come and do time. I go, well, he's like, there's no money. And I'm like, listen, I live up in Westchester. I'm not going down to the city for an hour, and I'm not really supposed to be working. And then he goes, man, he kind of put your face on a flyer. I know he shouldn't have done that, but, and I'm just going. And my wife goes, why don't you just go? Okay, just go down there and do time. I'm going to be going to bed anyway. So I go down to the city there's 4 audience members in this bar, okay? In this downstairs, and then there's like 12 comedians lined up against the wall waiting to do time, right? So I get there and I'm going, I drove down here for this shit, 4 people and all these comedians. And I'm on stage and I go, you can't do jokes that work, right? You can't. What am I going to do? I'm not going to give all of my A stuff to 4 people. Why don't I work? I'm here getting work. And I paused and I'm going, what do I have? What's in my phone? What's in my phone? What's in my phone? Because I don't take things out. It's just my OCD won't allow me to do that. So never in my career have I ever taken out my phone, notes. I don't even take tags from people. It's just it's my weird wiring. Not that there's anything wrong with it. I just don't do it. So I'm going, what's in my phone? What's in my phone? And I go, oh, and then my mind goes, why don't you do that thing you just jotted down about St. Peter? I end up doing it. And all these comedians are laughing. There's 4 audience members laughing. And then next thing you know, I'm doing it in a basketball arena, opening for Bill Burr, and it worked. And that was only because I went out that night and I forced myself to try something that I put in the phone, and and bits like that come. So the craziest and best bits that you could have sometimes come in the weirdest moments, in the weirdest shows, where you never think that you'd get them. And that's why that joke came.
That reminds me of 2 stories. I don't know whether, Billy, if you heard the Red Fox story, but Red Fox was in Vegas one time, and he was doing a show, and he says, ladies and gentlemen, Red Fox, and red music plays, da 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 da, da 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 da, and he walks out and he sees 2 people in the audience.
Yes.
And he says, 2 fucking people? I ain't doing a show for 2 fucking people. Turns around and walks out and he goes, da 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 da.
It's still funny, though. It's still funny.
I heard that. That's a true. Yes, that's a great story. That's
You know what it is too when you're doing comedy, and you see 4 people.
Yeah.
No, you know right away it's going to be a tough sell. But then when you see 12 comics, you got to realize these 12 comics are waiting to do time, and they're probably not even listening to you. They're running their own bits in their heads, because
Yes.
comics are the toughest people in the world to make laugh, especially
Yes.
at an open mic or something like that.
Yeah, and you're right. Everybody's insecure. Everybody is, going through their own shit. And, but also, since I was kind of a level above some of the comedians as far as my experience, in my mind, I'm like, I want to give some good ideas. Like, I don't want it to look like I got nothing. So luckily that popped in my head. But I remember one time I was standing on a fucking Coca-Cola crate as a stage in a bar in a bar in Jersey, and the fucking stage is what they held the 2 liters of Coke in, and I'm standing on this thing, and I'm just yelling at people while they're eating chicken parm and shit. It wanted nothing to do with me, but you know what? Jokes came, because it's almost like fight or flight, right? It's like, hey, I chose to do this shit, and I'm making no money right now. So let me get the most of it. It's funny that we're talking about this, because I was talking yesterday to somebody, and they said, if your kids wanted to do this, and I said, look, I drove from upstate New York to Harlem, 125th Street, under the bridge, to perform for 250 black audience members who wanted to boo me out of the place. So I said, if you're willing to do shit like that for no money, then we could talk. But if my kids don't have the passion like that, you ain't doing this fucking business. Right? You're too secure as a family for that shit.
Well, talking about security, why did you become a comic, Paul?
It's a great question, Frank. I think, my parents had a really brutal divorce when I was 5 and my brother was 10. And it was the early 80s. And if I'm being honest, and I love my parents, and they did the best that they could, but it was textbook of what not to do when you get divorced. Right. My father is 100% Sicilian from the Bronx. Italians don't do that. Sicilians, we don't get divorced. This was your mother, and then this and that. And then I'd be on both sides. Oh, your father said this, but you don't know this. So I guess lack of security, and then also moving a lot. We moved a lot. And when I moved, I had to make friends. So I would get popular, I would play sports, and then all of a sudden, 4 years later, I'm moving again. So my stories and my personality, I noticed that people liked. They thought I was funny, and I think that now looking back later, I think that acceptance and being able to be in any situation and make people happy by telling stories or being funny, I think that's where it came from. I think it's an acceptance thing, and I think it's a self-worth thing, maybe.
and it was rooted in your insecurity.
Yes, I think so.
That's why I found a lot of stand-ups. I've worked with many stand-ups in my life. And all of those guys, with the exception of Rickles, and Rickles even was a mama's boy, are rooted in their insecurities. That's why your kids are probably not going to be stand-up comics, because they have a good upbringing. That's a tribute to you and your wife.
I appreciate that, and I think so. I think that kind of the brokenness that me and my brother went through is this. So, but look, I wouldn't change it just because to make a living doing what I love and making people laugh. And, this is the only job in the world where we could talk right now on this podcast about, a funny blowjob story, and all of a sudden go on stage tonight and tell that story. And then the next show everything is different. It's the only job where everything is different and fresh. And I love it. Yeah,
absolutely.
But it's easy to slip into when you first start doing comedy. It's easy to slip into the insecurity of it. You don't want to fail, and you don't want to do too much new stuff. You want to make them laugh,
Yeah.
And that really stagnates you. You got to have the balls to jump off the cliff and say, okay, I'm doing this new stuff, and that's it.
Well,
Yes.
Paul, you change your act quite a bit, don't you?
Yeah, for me, it's like I basically, when I put an hour out, like my first hour Night at the Stand was in 2015. When that came out, I had nothing for 3 months. I'm like, can I even do this? And then all of a sudden you build the foundation. Then I did I'll Say This, same thing. So what I like to do is build up the hour over a year and a half, 2 years, travel with it, work it, add things, take things out. And then once I do that, try to just work all that away and kind of start over. It's like building another house. You build the house, you knock it down, and you start over again. That's what I've done.
Yeah, because George Lopez used to tell me he used to try to work the audience. He would read the audience, see what they're reacting to, and he would change his act sort of in response to what the audience was reacting to. I produced his first stand-up HBO special in Phoenix, and we did 3 nights rehearsal before we did the show, and he probably did 2 or 3 different acts. And when we came out on show night, I said, be ready, because he's liable to go any place. And that's what he did. He just read the audience like you do.
Yeah, like that's one thing is like if I'm in San Antonio and I see something and I'm in a mood or something just came on my phone, news or something, I'm going to go out there and riff about it. And sometimes those riffs work and become bits, other times not. But I feel like when I'm working that muscle and I'm actually up there just talking, like I went on stage in San Antonio recently. It was like right when the day the vaccine came out. It was like right when the people were getting the vaccine. And I got a friend and he's going like, fuck that. I'm not taking that shit. I don't know what's in it. And I'm going, this kid's 350 fucking pounds. He smokes 2 packs of cigarettes a day. And he's not going to take a fucking vaccine to say, it's not worse than the shit he's putting in his body. So I go on stage. Let me try that, because that was the first thought that I had, and I'm going on stage, so let me try that. Now, something like that, falls flat or not, that's my thought. So to just do it on stage made sense in that moment, and it ended up working. So I love doing stuff like that. I could never do this business if it was like a robot. I'm going to go up and do this joke, that joke, that joke, that joke,
Well, that's one difference between new comics and the old guys in the days of burlesque, because that's where they come getting their act together. They would go out for a year or two, and they would go Milwaukee one year, and they would go the Midwest the next year, and they would go to California, and by the time they came back, they had a whole new act. But that's what they would say by working their act on the road. You guys are your comedy is so immediate. You have to be very, very secure as a comic to work the way you do, and I give you credit for that.
Oh, I appreciate it. It took a long time. It took a long time to kind of let go of the handlebars, so to speak, and say, look, I remember I was in Atlanta. I'm sorry, I got to just charge the phone so I don't lose you guys here. So I was in Atlanta, Georgia. I'm in the green room. I was working with Bill Burr at the time. I was opening for Bill, and we were talking about how Patrice O'Neal, rest his soul, Patrice would flip the act. So, in other words, Yeah, I may open with my closer. This joke that was at the beginning of the set, I'm going to do. And I remember the first time I did that, I just didn't feel like doing the lineup of my jokes. I felt it in my heart, in my instincts to, I want to talk about this and I want to talk about this now. I don't care that it's later on in my set. I feel like the crowd needs a joke like this early in the set as opposed to later. And I'm just going to go with it and I'll find my way. And I know the jokes that I have and we'll piece this thing together. Now, obviously, I wouldn't do that for a special or something big. But when I'm out there working and I'm doing spots or I'm on the road, I feel like, but it took me, I would say, over a decade. Over a decade for me to be comfortable enough where I'm just going to go up and talk about what I want.
But that night in Atlanta, your comedy took a quantum leap forward.
That's 100% right. Yes.
Because
I think I remember you telling me one time that most comics, I don't know most comics, but I certainly did anyway. I always kept my phone in my pocket and recorded my set, because I wanted to critique myself later. But I remember you telling me one time that Bird told you, don't do that. Just stay loose, be yourself, get more flexible, be improv.
So, yeah, so there's a real, the story goes, it's funny, right as you said that, Bill Burr just sent something. Here's how the story goes. There was a band, famous band. Maybe, I don't know, maybe Victor Wooten, it was a big band. And the guy, the front man or somebody in the band looked and said, guys, that was amazing last night. That was amazing what we did. That show, the way it came together, everything. And the other guy in the band goes, yeah, let's not try to do that tonight. In other words, you don't duplicate something that's organic and beautiful. Now, I do record my set, but I was in stand-up New York one night. Everything worked. When I tell you everything worked, I'm doing a 15-minute set in New York. Improv worked. Jokes worked. Crowd work worked. And I mean not work. Everything was. It was like I dreamed. It was like a dream of perfect. And I don't record it. And I'm beating myself up. But then I realized something. Then some of those nights kept happening. And I realized, oh, you know what's happening now? It's not this amazing moment that I was doing. It's that I'm getting better and I'm starting to duplicate these nights. And it's something that's clicking with me. That said, I do like to record my really long sets. And when I'm working an hour on the road, because there are things that I take out or somebody will say, hey, you said it different this time. I like to have that written down and see. But I don't try to duplicate something that was like organic, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it makes sense also because you can't control the audience. And each night you have a new audience and you don't know what the audience is going to respond to. So you maybe killing one night, the next night do exactly the same thing and you die. So you can't take it personally. You just got to get up and brush yourself off and come out again for the next night.
That's a great point because I think being able to walk off feeling like shit, I think that's a big part of it too. Yeah. When you're a younger comic, those bad sets, those bad nights, the nights that are the opposite of what I said, where nothing is working and you're not flying on all cylinders. They don't like you. They're quiet. They're barely listening and you leave feeling like shit. I started to realize that when I was becoming a better comedian, it wouldn't hurt as much.
Yes.
It would go from either like devastated for a week and a half to then now, you know what? I'll be over it in the morning, and so on.
Yeah, you have to realize you get to a point where you realize it wasn't you, it was them.
Yeah. And when George Carlin said something like, "I do it for me," I got to tell the story though on this podcast about how I met Billy O. Okay, because this is a great. I love this. I love this. So I do this festival.
I'm going to tell the same version after you tell it because it's probably going to be different.
Okay.
But I remember it very well too. Go ahead, tell.
Okay, well, so I go to Arizona and I do the Tempe Improv, and they said, "Hey, there's a little festival in Flagstaff. Why don't you drive up?" So a comic drove me from Tempe to Flagstaff. They put me up. I was one of the headliners at this festival, and they put me up in the room. And my night to headline was in this side room off of a bar, and they had all the chairs, and it was packed out. And I go up, and I think I did like 45 to an hour, and I'm on stage, and I'm having a good time, and I'm working a lot of the material, I believe, that some of the things that were going to be in my special. I'll say this. And I hear this guy, and I hear fucking Billy's whatever, the bird choking or whatever the fuck. And I just hear like, and I'm going, where's that? And I'm looking to the left, and I remember actually going to you in the crowd and going, I love this guy. This guy is like, and you even were going back and forth with me. I think I found out that you were from New York during the set and everything like that. And then we went downstairs, and this is when I knew that I loved you and that you were just a true New Yorker. This guy's sitting there, and I was like, hey, man. And he's like, that was so, great, blah, blah, blah. I said, thank you. And I said, do you want a beer? And he said, I don't drink, but I'll join you if you have a beer. We're having a beer. And he starts talking about sports and being a bookie. And then he goes, yeah, and I'm going to tell you what. He goes, the Super Bowl was fixed. Super Bowl III was fixed, and I got proof. So he said, and when he said I got proof, I just go, I love this guy. Like, who the fuck says that? And then we had a great night, and it was great.
We had a great night, and that's exactly where I met you. Now I'll tell you my version of what happened.
All right.
Same room, like you said. I said the average age in the room was about 30, right?
Oh.
About 30 years old.
Yep.
I had just done a set before you came out. You were the headliner, and I was the last person to go up. I think I had about 4 other comics. I did 15 minutes before you came out, right? So I did my 15 minutes, and now there was an empty seat in the first row. So I sit down in the empty seat. Now, you come into the room, you don't know nothing. You didn't see me do comedy. You don't even know I'm a comic. But I stand out because I'm like 30 years older than everybody in the room, right? And I have my arms crossed like this.
40.
Now I'm in the front row with my arms crossed. So right away you look down and you say, okay, what's this fucking guy's story? It's like, make me laugh, chucklehead. Like when you see the closed arms like this, it's always like, you're supposed to be a comic, make me laugh. But that wasn't my intention. I really wanted to see your work because, you were a headline and I had never seen you. So I'm sitting there like this, and you right away, you look down at me and you say, all right, what's your story? What's with the crossed arms? What do you got a problem or something? I said, no, I want to see your work. Well, let's see what you got.
Wow, you got a good
Then when you started working, once you started working, I started laughing. And then you started rolling, and then I started dying. And now you were saying, this guy needs an EMS. Get an EMS out here. Get this guy some oxygen. And then we met downstairs, and and you're a real affable guy. I mean, Frank has a theory, and I don't know if it's a theory or it's true, but in this business, in show business, you got to be likable. I mean, you just can't be. It's not just even if you're really good and you're a prick, you ain't going nowhere.
I agree, and I think Frank is right, but it hurt me at the beginning. I'm going to tell you why, because I was likable and had a presence at the beginning, so crowds gave me more. They gave me more than I deserved because they liked me. So what was happening was my material needed to catch up to the performer I was. My material needed to catch up to my presence.
Mm-hmm.
It needed to catch up to my persona and my likability. So I was going on stage, right? And people are laughing and liking. And then I'm listening back and I'm going, okay, that joke's okay. Oh, they liked me. So it made me not dig as deep with material because I'm going, not this is easy, but these people like me. Then when I realized and I saw real comics work, real material, I realized I want to be the guy that has presence and is likable and monster jokes. Because if I can be that guy where you're like, he's easy to work with, he shows up on time, he doesn't drink, he's nice to people, he's nice to the staff, and by the way, he fucking murdered the room for an hour and with great jokes. And that's what I wanted to do. So likability is a gift, but you also need to make sure that you don't rely on it.
You need to work it. You need to work it for sure. Likability. That's a nice thing to say.
I got a question for everybody. Is that really true? I mean, having spent so much time in show business, I have a feeling there's a lot of people in show business that are successful that aren't likable. But I mean, that just could be a misconception.
Well, they hide it. There's the polyos.
Okay.
Yeah, I think. I think it'll get. I think it gets exposed too. I do think that like there are assholes that go certain places and certain far like can get far.
Right.
But if you're just, I think if you're just not likable and people don't want to work with you, and eventually you being a prick, it's like I'll get a guy who's not a prick. I'd rather book the guy who's not a prick,
Right.
and
Right.
maybe 80% of you, but laugh wise. But everybody loves when he's around, and this guy's making people walk on eggshells. Get him the fuck out of here. That's what I've
Right.
experienced.
Right.
Well, it makes sense. I mean, if you're going to go on a road, and let's say you're going to bring a comic to open for you. I mean, funny's funny. You want a guy who's funny, but that's not your main priority. You're going to go on a road for 3 months. You got to be able to fucking live with this guy for 3 months. You don't want to go on a fucking road with some asshole.
Yeah.
I mean, right? That just makes sense.
You know what?
Let me ask you a question, Paul. There's an old golf adage, and it says that every gambling bet that has ever been made in golf is won and lost on the first tee. You know, the bet itself, the handicap, the thing. I think it's pretty much the same thing in comedy. I think you got to read the room before you go on stage, and if you read the room wrong, you're fucked.
Yeah, and you know, my favorite quote is a quote from John Wooden. John Wooden, actually, if you guys ever go to the Basketball Hall of Fame in Springfield, Massachusetts, there's quotes of John Wooden all over the wall. He's got two amazing ones. One that's for life, is he says the best thing a father can do for their kids is love their mother, which is incredible. But my favorite one is failure to prepare is preparing to fail. And that's my favorite quote in life, because any big show that I've ever done, any big gig I've ever done, anything that I ever really gave a shit about, I made sure those T's were crossed, those I's were dotted. I went in with enough ammunition. I wasn't going to run out of bullets. The whole thing. And I think that reading the room, what you're saying, Billy, I think that that's part of it. You look at the room, you kind of feel an energy, you could get a sense from that crowd, and then that goes back to what I was saying before. Oh, you know what? This crowd, I'm opening with this joke instead, because I could see things and feel things, and I'm going to come out with a different thing here. That's all experience and being prepared.
Yep. You mentioned the Basketball Hall of Fame. You have been there, obviously. You've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame also?
I've been to the Baseball Hall of Fame. The Basketball Hall of Fame, when I went, was closed. They opened the banquet hall there. They opened a room there because I opened for a Boston legend named Don Gavin.
Right.
Don Gavin, the Boston comic, and I opened for him there. They had the thing, maybe 200-something people. So I wasn't able to see all the things in the basketball thing, but I was able to see those quotes and certain things on the wall. But yes, I did go to Cooperstown for baseball too.
This is where I got this.
Oh, wow. Nice. Are you a Yankee fan?
You know, Frank had dinner with John Wooden, actually. There's a chapter in our book, If These Lips Could Talk, about John Wooden.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. I had a great dinner with John Wooden. Thank you for reading the book, by the way.
Wait a minute. You fuck. How weird is that I brought that up? And you fuck. I had no. Wow. You had dinner with John Wooden?
Yes. I was.
Spent the whole day with him.
I was and am artist. I've been Rod Carew's agent for 40 years. In addition to my career in show business, I've been Rod Carew's agent for 40 years. So Rod and I were at his celebrity golf tournament, and John Vallely, who played on the 1970 basketball team against Jacksonville University, where I went to school, and I'm also Artist Gilmore's agent. Those are the only two athletes I represent, because I maintain relationships with them from a former life. John Vallely was there, and John Vallely offered up a dinner for six with John Wooden. So I took to Rod. I said, "We're getting that." So we were the high bidders for that, and we got it to invite like three people. So Rod said, "Well, I'm just going to invite my wife, so you can take my three people or whatever." And I invited artists. So artists flew out from Jacksonville. I invited Vaughn Wedeking, who was a guard on the 1970 Jacksonville team that lost in the finals to UCLA. And we all had dinner with Andy Hill, who was the president of CBS and a member of that 1970 team, Coach Wooden, John Valley, and we had a great time. We had a great time.
That's amazing, and like the history at that table, and the history at that table, the wins, the victories, and all those things. Everybody's sitting there. That's the cool thing about show business is the things that aren't in show business, and what I mean by that is you sit down at a table with a bunch of guys. There were a couple of us, and we were all just smoking cigars in Manhattan, and I'm looking around, and I'm just going like, so cool to sit with these talented people that all have similar experiences, all came up kind of similar, obviously different ways, and to just tell those war stories while you're smoking a cigar, and like you get to sit down and you have dinner with John Wooden, and you could probably, not that he'd want to constantly talk about these championship games, but all that experience, and when you just sit down with that, there's something really cool about that to me.
You know what he wanted to talk about more than anything else? Baseball with Rod Carew.
It's funny that you said that because people that do what they do don't want to talk about it. They'd rather talk about like real estate, or they'd rather talk about something else.
Well, a lot of people get the misconception that Wooden was such a great coach and they had the great years at UCLA because he had Jabbar or because he had Walton. Of course, those two guys were dominant players, Walton and Jabbar. But the year they went undefeated, they didn't have a guy on that team over 6'5".
Yeah, Coach Wooden used to say, "Don't call me a wizard." I found out that people who usually have the best players usually win.
Yeah. I don't know. Would you guys say this? Is it safe to say now? And this is not taking anything away from basketball coaches, but out of every sport, I do think that the least credit goes to the coach of but what I'm trying to say is my fucking 8-year-old daughter could have coached that 92 Bulls team to a championship. Do you know what I mean? So I think basketball, you do have to be a leader of men. I do think you need to be a great coach. Don't get me wrong. But I think being a baseball manager, if I had to rank them, I think being a baseball manager and being a football head coach, when you have so many more individuals to deal with and stuff, where you got two superstars on the basketball court. If you have two superstars on the basketball court, your wins and losses change drastically there. Would you agree, or would you think that basketball coaches is higher than the other sports?
Well, now I think it's different. Now I think it's a matter of managing personality. That was probably the truth 25 years ago. But Earl Weaver used to say, you're going to win 1/3 of your games. You're going to lose 1/3 of your games. It's what you do in the middle third of your games that are going to make the difference. And he also used to say, you got 1/3 of your team will hate you. 1/3 of your team will love you. The key to being a good coach is keeping the other third away from the people that hate you. So
that's fucking great.
I know, Paul. I know you like to dabble in sports. I know you're a big sports freak. And according to Burr, you only bet the chalk. You always like to bet the chalk. You don't like to take the dogs. You're not a dog guy. I'm a dog guy all the way. I always take the points. And I'm never right, but I always take the points.
By the way, what was your record picking the dogs, and what was my record this year?
Oh, yeah, forget about it. What was I, 4-12 or something? I mean,
no, you were like barely 500, and I was 11-4 with Derek just picking a game at random and to say who's going to win this game, and I would just tell you I was 11-4.
It used to drive me nuts, Paul. It drive me nuts. I've been looking at these fucking lines for hours. They throw him a game and he comes up with a fucking thing and he goes 11-4. I was starting to call him the guru. It was driving me nuts.
He's giving a fucking.
And I'm a bookie. I'm looking at 20 different lines. You know what I mean?
He's giving a chimpanzee a dart to throw at a wall and picking whatever.
Yeah.
And you're. Oh, that's so
I've never been called a chimpanzee before. But
you were giving it.
Hey, why don't you tell me a little bit about your relationship with Bill Burr and what it was like opening for him at Carnegie Hall?
So.
And how'd you meet him?
On Thanksgiving Eve Thanksgiving Eve, it was Wednesday, 2005. Before Thanksgiving, and I was doing a comedy club in Montclair, New Jersey called Rascals. and I was opening for Robert Kelly. Bobby Kelly's a dear friend of mine. I was opening for him. He's another Boston guy. So I think I'm going to be opening for Bobby the rest of the weekend. And they go, no, Bobby's just on Thanksgiving Eve. Another guy's coming in Friday, Saturday. I said, who? They said, oh, Bill Burr. Now, Bill had just done like a half hour, and it was his first really big weekend. He was doing Opie and Anthony. It was his first weekend. So I'm nervous out of my mind. It's one of my first big feature weekends, you know, and it's 400-something people overflowing in the room, there for Bill, Opie and Anthony fans. I go up, and he went downstairs, Bill, and my nerves just brought the best out of me, and I killed. And I wait for after the show, and I see Bill talking to a manager, and I go, if there was ever a time for me to meet him, I should go up now, because I had a good set. I was feeling good. And right as I'm about to kind of get in there and talk, somebody taps him on the shoulder. They turn around, and I'm like, let me just go downstairs. I don't want to, I want to do it through the manager. I don't want to be the guy to go up to him. So I start going downstairs, and I feel a tap on the shoulder, and it was Bill. And he said, man, were you the other guy on the show? And he goes, dude, you ripped. He goes, I didn't see it. I was downstairs. I heard it, but I'm going to watch you on your next set. Really nice. We end the weekend. He says, I'm going to refer you to Vinnie Brand over at the Stress Factory in New Brunswick. I do that, and it goes well. I reach out to Bill. I said, thank you so much for recommending me to this room. It went great. And Bill said, you know what? Next time I'm there, you come with me. And that was 2007, and I opened for him there, and he's a big Patriots fan. I'm a big Giants fan. That was the year the Patriots were undefeated until my Giants, you know, beat them in the Super Bowl. And the funny thing is, what we bonded over was me telling Bill that the 2007 Patriots, the best offense I ever seen, and he's, you know, typical Boston guy. He's got to find something wrong with what he loves. So he's going, no, defense isn't good. His insecurity about his own team. And we just kind of became, and then slowly, hey, man, I'm going to D.C. You want to open for me at the Improv in D.C.? And then we just became, and then he became my son's godfather. And, you know.
Let me break in, Derek, because we got a pretty funny clip of you and Bill eating hot shrimp in, where was it? In Elmo's.
St. Elmo's in Indianapolis. They put the hottest horseradish on these things, and we were like testing each other. Yeah.
So, Derek, can you roll that clip?
Yeah.
This is great.
We are at the famous St. Elmo's Steakhouse, and I am eating their famous spicy shrimp. And this thing is no joke.
We were warned not to take a big bite.
We were warned not to take a big bite.
Feel it in the back of your head. Here we go.
Here we go. Cheers. Oh my God, it's unbelievable.
Oh, go ahead. All right. He was man enough to do it. I'll do it too.
Wow, that's a big one.
Oh,
Oh my God.
Dude.
Pretty funny stuff.
Those reactions were so genuine. When I tell you, it was about a 2-3 second delay. And when it was fucking nuts. But you know, Bill has been a mentor to me, man. And I'll tell you, you mentioned Frank, you mentioned Jacksonville. I opened for him at the Comedy Zone in Jacksonville, and we went to see the Jaguars play. I believe it was the Bengals. And we go back to the bar at the hotel after, and we having some wings and a beer. And I was flying high because I had a good show, and I felt good. And I was, you know, I said, man, I think I could be great. I looked at him, and I literally, this is a true story. I looked at him, and I said, I think I can be great. And he looked me in my face, and this is years ago. And he said, you're never going to be great if you don't dig deeper. And what he meant by that was that likability thing we said. You're never going to be great if you don't dig deeper. And what he was saying was, your life, the real things in your life, not things that are just funny. Because I find that being a good comedian and being funny are two different worlds.
Yep. Let me tell you something. I'll tell you a story. When we were doing Bless This House with Dice, Rosie O'Donnell was on the show as a guest star. And Rosie and I have a couple of mutual friends. And I said to her about this guy who will remain nameless because he's still working stand-up. I said, why do you think he didn't make it? And she said, he didn't give his audience a doggy bag. And I thought about that. And she's funny. She said, whenever anybody talked about him, I said, I saw the funniest comedian last night. And she said, oh yeah, what was so funny about him? And they said, nobody ever remembered. See, that's what she meant by she didn't give anybody a doggy bag. And it was really, I'm not a big fan of Rosie, but she was right on in that moment.
Yeah, I've never heard that saying before, and it's brilliant. And it's one thing to, what did somebody say once? It's one thing to kill. You go out there, kill, joke. It's another thing to kill, then take it down. Take them on a ride. Tell a story like a roller coaster. Roller coaster has got the anticipation hill. Then it's got all the fast shit. Then it's got the turns. And when you're done, you're like, what was your favorite part? Was it going high? Was it going fast? And that's exactly right. This is a brilliant, man. This is amazing. I love being on this.
When you said before, when Bill told you to dig deeper, and I think there's a difference. Now, this is me. I think there's a difference between a comic and a comedian. The comedian comes out and tells jokes and he's funny. A comic is genuinely funny, and he can make anything funny. That's just my opinion. But you gave me the best piece of advice when I was doing comedy, and I still like to do it, but of course with the pandemic, I'm focusing on writing right now because at 72 years old, let's face it, I'm not going to be the darling in the nursing homes. You know what I mean? Where am I going? But you gave me the best advice I ever got as a comic. You told me one day it was at the Tempe Improv, and you turned around to me and said, Billy, listen, you're funny. You don't have to try that hard to be funny. You're fucking funny.
Yeah.
Just be funny. Be you.
Yeah.
And that's a great piece of advice.
But I take, you're funny, so that's a good thing. But a lot of the comedy writers on sitcoms, I almost said sitcoms, but sitcoms I worked on are not funny. They're not funny at all. They're funny writers.
Yeah.
Gene Wilder was probably the least funny guy in person that you ever want to met. You've never seen Gene Wilder on a talk show because Gene wouldn't go on talk shows because he wasn't inherently funny. But you give him, he was a comedic actor as opposed to in a comedy. There's a big difference between comedic actors and comics.
Yeah,
he was a comic.
I think a lot of comedians that are writers, you could tell that their performance skills, like for me, we were saying this the other day about my hero. Who's my hero? Who did I want to emulate? And it's very simple, and it'll never change, and it's Eddie Murphy. Because in 1987, when my father took me to see Raw in theaters against my mother and grandmother's wishes, but I said, Dad, you got to take me. Your grandmother doesn't want you to go, your mother doesn't want you to go to the language. I said, Dad, you got to take me to this. And for me, watching somebody stalk a stage back and forth and tell those stories and be able to talk about the sad thing of your drunk uncle or drunk father who's yelling in the house and your mother's walking on eggshells, and make that person funny because everybody can relate. And now instead of it being a sad thing and a tragedy thing, it's like, wow, this guy, this is life. And I saw that. But then I saw him do an impression. Then you see George Carlin would tell some profound story or go into something about religion or politics, and then he'll do a goofy dance. So that's what I wanted to do. Now, there are some comedians that looked at guys in a suit on The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson and said, that's what I want to do. Set up punchline. For me, it was the Murphys and the Carlins and the Pryors that really take you on a ride. So it's a whole different thing than just set up joke.
Yep. George Lopez's inspiration was Richard Pryor in 1977 in Long Beach when when he saw Richard 77 in Long Beach special, that became the motive and the impetus for him wanting to be a comic. Everybody's got it. My generation, it was Rickles, because Rickles was the big. I called Don the Babe Ruth of comedy, because when I got to work with him years later, and we became great friends. He wasn't anything like his persona. He was the most likable man in the world. But you put him in front of an audience, and wow, he'd kill you.
Well, you know what? You made a point in the book when he introduced you when you were with Rod Carew, and he had Rod Carew stand up and take a bow and everything at one of his shows. And then he said he's with Frank Pace. He's a fag for the FBI. And everybody started laughing. Now, a fag for the FBI is not that funny. But again, Rickles is a comic. He's not a comedian. A comedian needs to set up the punchline. Anything Rickles says is funny because he's funny.
Yep.
You know, he can get away with it. I mean, some people say things that ain't that funny, but they're funny.
Right. I agree. No, I would. I mean, these people that you met, like Rickles was one I would have loved to meet. I didn't get to meet Rickles, and another one that I wanted to meet. I read his book, and then he was going to do a signing, and then he ended up passing away. Was Dangerfield, because I
worked with Rodney also.
Yeah, my father took me to Radio City when he performed. And to answer your question, Frank, I'm sorry I didn't answer your question. When I opened for Bill at Carnegie Hall, it was the most nervous I ever been, because even though we had done some theaters at the time, and we have done some packed out comedy clubs for weekends and stuff, and I was in a big environment, never at Carnegie. And that was my first legendary room. And true story, the first time my father, and only time that my father has ever seen me perform, is there. The last time me and my father were in a room, and my father is alive and well. My father's alive and well. He's in Florida. And he took me to Radio City Music Hall in the balcony to see Rodney Dangerfield when Durham went back to school was big. And by the end of it, I was sleeping. I remember the beginning, and I remember him coming out, people going wild. The next time me and my father were in a theater again, he was in the balcony and I was on stage at Carnegie Hall, and the nerves were just so nuts, because there's all these suites with grand pianos, and all of these artists that have been in there, and I'm sitting there and my family's there, and I'm only doing probably a little bit up front, but I'm walking out of Carnegie Hall and my family, and it's New York, and I don't want to let my friend down, and my friend said, I wouldn't put you in this situation if I knew you weren't gonna. And it ended up being, again, I was prepared, I was ready, but the nerves of that.
I can't imagine that.
It was unbelievable.
Especially being from New York. I mean, I remember getting out of the subway a few years ago, and I get up and I see you on a billboard on 42nd Street, and you're a big picture of Paul Virzi on 42nd Street. I said, what a kick that's got to be for New York.
Yeah.
I mean,
it was, listen, nobody ever wanted me in this business. And when I tell you, nobody, even though Bill would have me open, and I opened for Brewer, and I opened for Attella, and I had these things, nobody ever cared, man. I was just, the Montreal Comedy Festival they wanted alternative comics. And I'm not saying, I'm not saying that bitter. I ended up eventually doing the Montreal Comedy Festival, but I was just a guy that, what's different about him? He's not different. He's a guy's guy. He's got children. He likes sports and cigars and whiskey. He's just, he's a funny guy. But so I remember, and it's the word that we all know in show business. And the word is what? The word is undeniable. And I just worked it and worked it and worked it. But I can tell you this: if people have talent and the drive and the will, if all of the things come together, and it sounds corny and it sounds cliche, I know that. But the truth is, usually when corny and cliche things come out, because there's some truth to it. But everything I ever wanted, and everything that I ever dreamed about, and literally would walk and think about it, and dream about it, and say I'm going to do it, and put it out there, and know that the short-term and the long-term goals are going to be met, or I'm going to die trying, meeting them. All of those things happen because I stay the course. I still have a ton of work to do to get better. My next special will be better than my last, because that's just what I'm going to do. But all of those things, man. So when I the reason I'm bringing this up is because when I saw that billboard in Times Square of me, and I realized how many times I was told no before that, and I'm walking to Sirius XM radio, and they said, "Oh, your billboard is by the Viacom building," and I walked and I didn't see it, and then I crossed the street and I looked again, and boom, I just saw myself like 100 feet, and I went to the thing, and it was just like, wow, man, like you could, things are possible if it's you though. It's got to be you. It's like, you know what I mean? Rod Carew was Rod Carew because he probably got to the point where he was just like he locked in, and that's what you do.
Yep, he prepared. Well, you mentioned Sirius XM radio. Jay Thomas was my best friend, and Jay and I met when we were 19 at Jacksonville University. And he always used to. He told me something once. He said, "You've got to make room for yourself in this business. There's no room for any of us. You've got to make room for yourself." And he made room for himself, and I made room for myself, and you made room for yourself. Billy, maybe not so much, but. But
I remember, Paul, talking to you in a green room, and I said to you, what motivates you? What drives you? And you know what you said to me? It bothers me that I see guys that have made it that ain't as funny as me. That bothers me. And I'm not going to let that happen. And that's drive. I remember Jim Carrey famously, supposedly, wrote himself a check for $1 million and said, in 3 years, I'm going to cash this check.
10 million.
Well,
10 million. Was it 10 million?
Your memory, Billy, and the reason why you're so good at that is the way you told the story about how we met with so many different details. But I'm glad you told me that, and I'm glad you said that because I'm now remembering that. But like when I see somebody that I know I'm either outworking or I think that I'm funnier than, and it's not in a bad way. It's like, all right, well, listen, that guy's got that. They just gave that guy $10 fucking million, okay? And I think that I'm as talented, if not more talented, and what I'm bringing to the table, I deserve $10 million too. Because if they're giving $10 million to people, then I want it because I'm doing it. And so, yeah, that's the motivation. But you also have to have, you got to be beat up a little bit. Like I think you got to be bulletproof after a while. I'll tell you guys a funny story. I'm at the Stand opening night, right? Opening night of the Stand, early, the first Stand, the one that was on 20th and 3rd, okay? And opening night, they got like Sarah Silverman was in there. They had like Dane Cook, Lynn Coplitz hosted it, and it was Artie Lang. It was Artie Lang's first time back after the stabbing himself incident.
Billy, where's your hat?
Somebody goes, Paul, a comic dropped out. Would you like to be on the inaugural show, the real first official show with all these people? And I said, sure, right? So I go downstairs and it's packed. And I'm looking and Artie is on stage and the place is going fucking crazy. I mean, he's back. He's talking about, the Stern thing. He's talking about the whole ordeal. People are going nuts. And I'm next, right? I'm next. I'm standing there and I'm just looking. And right as he gets off stage, and I'm just looking, and I'm going, holy shit, man, I got to follow this. And he ends with this. He goes, I'm back, motherfuckers. And he puts a rock and roll sign up. The place stands up. They start clapping, cheering, and then they start chanting, Artie, Artie. And then the guy who owned the club, he just looked at me. He tapped me on the back. He goes, he'll be fine.
That's
and
hilarious.
I went on stage, and it took me till I got the light to start doing well.
That's tough.
Well, you talk about preparing. I'm a basketball fan, but Bill Bradley was a great All-American basketball player. He played for the Knicks in the 70s. When he was a kid in Crystal City, Missouri, he used to say he was out practicing every day. And they asked him, why do you practice so much? He said, because someday I'm going to be meeting against a guy. I'm going to be playing against a guy who was practicing when I didn't want to practice. And if when I play against him, he's going to win. I want to make sure he never wins because he's more prepared than I was. And that's the same kind of same thing I'm hearing from you, Paul. That's really admirable.
Yeah, and the late great Kobe Bryant, he'd go into the gym until 2:00 in the morning, and they would go, I thought you told everybody you're going out to the club. And he goes, no, he wanted them to go to the club so he can get those shots in. You know, it's funny when the pandemic happened and people weren't doing stand-up anymore, it takes pressure because those nights that you have off and everybody's working, you're going, shit, man, they're getting better and I'm home here watching a movie. But when the pandemic happened, nobody was working. So I'm trying to work. So I totally understand that mentality for sure.
Yeah. Yeah.
You're doing a lot of work actually during the pandemic, considering most of the, say, 80% of the comedy clubs are closed and hurting. And have you noticed some guys that have just surrendered? Just said, like, you know what, man, I got to make a buck. Maybe I should take a civil service test. You know, you're meeting guys like that.
You know, it's a funny thing you say, Billy, and it's a great question. What I'm finding is, guys, I'm finding out who really loved it and who didn't. I'm finding out people that wanted to use it as an out. They wanted to use it as an excuse. They didn't love it or they were doing it. You know, the last thing you want to do is be in show business to fucking make ends meet. You know, I don't want to be in this business to I want to be in this. I love stand-up comedy. And if that's, you know, I got into it with a buddy going, well, it's about podcasts now. Nobody cares about stand-up. And I'm like, well, wait, I care about stand-up. Okay. I didn't get in this. I didn't drop out of college to be a fucking radio host. I dropped out of college because I wanted to do what Eddie Murphy did. And I want to put out hour. And then I realized how hard this business was. And then I'm actually starting to excel at it and get better at it. I want to see how far this can go. I want to tell my kids, let's see how far it can go. So when the pandemic happened, people got lazy. I was fortunate to have coronavirus in March because when I found out that I had antibodies, I was able to call my agent at William Morris. And I said, hey, let's go. I'm good. I have antibodies. I had it. As long as the club is safe, the crowd is spaced out and people are being safe, then let's do it. So that's when I went to Arizona. That's when I went to Salt Lake City. I was a handful of comics. There was probably only about 25 of us during this time that were kind of working regularly, but it was tough. You had to be safe. You had to make sure the crowd was safe. But I knew that since I had already had it, I was able to put the work in. So it ended up being, but I think that you're right, Billy. There are going to be some people that realize during this time, you know, maybe I'll be a fucking mailman, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find it a little more difficult in the rooms that most of the rooms are like half the crowd that you use the capacity, right? So,
Yeah.
I mean, I remember seeing you at the Tempe Improv, and it was funny. It was great for me because you were opening for Bill. It was a Wednesday night, and of course, I wanted to see Bill, but I wanted to see you, you know, because I know who you are, you know, and I lived in Arizona. So I came down to Tempe Improv, and it was a Wednesday night. And it was probably about 650 people there. The place was packed, you know. And you came out, and I got there about 2 minutes into your set. I was with my friend Sedna, who you know. And I came in, we sat down, and of course you were doing a bit, and I started laughing. And of course it was a bit I hadn't heard before, and I started cracking up. And you stopped, and you turned around and said, you looked into the dark, and you said, is that Billy out there? And it made my fucking night. You said, that Billy out there?
Who else would have that laugh?
Spotted it. I spotted the fucking sound. I knew.
That's funny.
Yeah.
Hey, Paul, who are some of your favorite athletes?
What's that?
Who are some of your favorite athletes?
So growing up, I was a big Patrick Ewing because of the Knicks. So
Wow.
I loved Ewing. You know, so as far as appreciation of just being dominant, Lawrence Taylor, when you watch that, do yourself a favor, watch that 7-minute YouTube clip of Lawrence Taylor's highlights. It actually looks like a man playing with young children. He was so fast, so strong. So I would say, like, I'm heartbroken by this. There was a man who was compared to Rod Carew. And I know you know, Frank, who I'm talking about. There was a Yankee who was compared to Rod Carew. His swing was like Rod Carew. And that was Robinson Cano. And when I saw Robinson Cano swing the bat with ease and slapping doubles, and he batted .386 at Fenway Park, okay? All the things you could want. And him and Jeter's double play, the smoothest thing. And then when he took that money and went to Seattle, it broke my heart. And then finding out about the HGH during that broke my heart. Robinson Cano, but the first athlete that I saw that made me go, wow, was Don Mattingly.
Yeah, well, Don Mattingly's idol was Rod, and Donnie's a really good friend. But I'll tell you about a little quick Robbie Cano story. Robbie Cano was in Seattle, and Rod gets a call from somebody who said, "Is Rod in Seattle?" And I said, "No, Rod's not in Seattle." What do you mean? He said, "Well, somebody's purporting to be Rod Carew in Seattle." It was Robbie Cano who was using Rod's name to check into a hotel, because they always check into hotels under aliases. So Robbie Cano was checking into a hotel as Rod Carew. So I called Rod immediately, and Rod called Rob, and he said, "Hey, you fuck, stop checking in it as me." And he stopped immediately.
Are you kidding me?
I don't make them up, Ellie.
Oh, that's fantastic.
Yep. Yep.
Now you're a diehard Nick, Giants, and Yankee fan. That's you.
I'm sorry for you for the past 20 years.
Yeah, the Knicks have been my problem child. Listen, all your kids can't be perfect, right? There's a one fuck up in there, right? You know, the Knicks. Yeah, go ahead.
The Knicks are. I mean, Julius Randle's playing great.
Julius Randle's playing great. I'm going to tell you what. This kid R.J. Barrett's putting in a lot of work too, and I think that the kid they got from fucking quickly. And you know what? Listen, I know I was goofing on NBA coaches before, but when you have a defensive-minded coach, which the Knicks have not had in a long time, but the fact that they're fun to watch now, they're young, makes me think, okay, but look, I got the Yankees, so I'm spoiled there. That's like my kid, that's the valedictorian, right? Then, then I got the Giants, that's the kid, he's got a good job, and then the Knicks are the asshole still sleeping on my couch doing drugs.
That's funny.
I was a huge Knicks fan, and of course, I used to go to the Garden during the glory days, when they had DeBusschere and Frazier and Monroe and, Reed, and I was bookmaking then, so I used to sit almost courtside, and the seats in them days was like $125, which was a lot of money back in the early 70s, late 60s. But I was bookmaking, so I didn't give a shit because I'd always have like 500 on a game or 1,000 on a game. Or the game meant a lot to me as a bookmaker. But I used to go there, and sometimes I'd bet the over, and I'm right down on courtside, and the Knicks are scoring, I go, yeah! And then Detroit is scoring, I go, yeah! Yeah! And Detroit is scoring again, I go, yeah! Knicks is scoring, yeah! And a couple of guys that turn around in the front row and go, can you tell me something? Who the fuck are you rooting
Rooting for the over, my friend. Rooting for the over.
In them days, Paul, I swear to God, everybody in the Garden, everybody that used to go to those big games used to bet. Everybody. And of course, it was before cell phones and before, so everybody was waiting for the out-of-town scores. And they used to have a guy named John Condon. And he was the voice of the Knicks on the PA system, right?
Yeah.
And John Condon, about midway through the game, there'd be a timeout, and he'd say, now for some out-of-town scores. And everybody be like, shut up. Everybody be waiting for the out-of-town scores because everybody had fucking money on the game. And Condon was a real prick. The way he'd announce the games, he'd go like this. Detroit, 125. Cleveland, 118. Los Angeles Lakers, 117. Clippers, 131. Like he put the loser behind it. And then he say, Cleveland Cavaliers, 86. And there's a silence. And this guy stands up from me and goes, what are you, some kind of a goddamn fucking wise guy?
That's hilarious.
Everybody was hanging on the score.
Oh, dude.
That's funny. It sort of reminded me of Carlin's giving the scores, baseball scores. Now the out-of-town baseball scores, 7-5.
Yeah.
6-4. 3-1.
But Condon was a real son of a bitch.
I think we can go on with this forever. So why don't you ask Paul? Why don't you get some closing thoughts here? Derek, why don't you go first? If you have any questions for Paul.
Well, I often wonder when you're hanging out with other comedians, and I guess you can't really give the opposite of this answer. So who's the who's got the thickest skin, or is the most mature in terms of being able to deal with, you know, getting a hard time from his buddies.
Oh, so you mean with breaking balls?
Yeah. Let's to take you off the hook. Let's put Bill Burr as number one, so he can take it the most. And who's next in line?
Well, you know what though? I think all of us do it differently. Like I think it matters what you're breaking balls on.
Okay.
If you broke somebody's balls about not being a good father, that's gonna be
right.
Forget about then it could be. But we do it more. We really do it more fun loving. That's why I'll give you an example. I like the Dean Martin roasts more than these Comedy Central roasts. Because the Dean Martin roasts were love. It was goofy, it was funny. Now it's like they talk about the people that died, or this one's pussy, this one you dirty cunt. It's like, so I think if we were to do a roast amongst our friends, I would break Burr's balls about his fucking green room rider eating fucking broccoli instead of, can we have some fucking pizza? Stuff like that.
Right.
But we all have kind of thick skin. We know each other so well. Listen, one thing I've done in this business was keep my circle very small.
Right.
I have about 5 guys that that we talk amongst and stuff. I'm a family guy. I'm up here in the country with my kids. When I'm not on stage, I want to be up here with my family, just hanging out, relaxing, watching the ball game and stuff. So I really don't have time for insecure, all that shit. So and cutting the cancers out of my circle was something that I did as well.
Right.
Well, you're a New York guy too. I mean, New York guys break balls. That's what we do to each other. I mean, Frank, I break Frank's balls all the fucking time, and he's merciless with me. I mean, but that's the game. That's New York. If you can't take it, you ain't got no business on the street.
I grew up in Westchester as well. I grew up in North White Plains, Valhalla.
Oh, sure. My brother went to Harrison High School.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you can't break balls in New York, you don't belong on the fucking street. You got to learn how to break balls and how to take it. I mean, that's the way it is.
Yeah.
I was telling Frank last week, when I first got to Phoenix, we talked to each other like I'd see 5 comics, and maybe I know one of them. I'd say, hey, you cocksuckers, how you doing, And the guy say, did this guy just call me a cocksucker? Like what the fuck, But that's it. That's New York. That's what we do, right? I mean,
yeah.
Like today, we were supposed to be on a call at 11:15. At 11 o'clock, I get a note from Billy. I'm going in the shower. I said, thanks for preparing.
That's pretty hilarious, actually.
Last week I spent 10 minutes. I says, you know what? We're talking about gay guys. And I says, in New York, you got Jewish gay guys. We used to call them Hebrews, and Irish gay guys, we call them a gay lick. And Italian gay guys, well, we just call them fucking giddy cocksuckers. And I mean, that's it. That's New York. That's what we do,
I told you, I work with Howard Morris. I used to thought my name. He called me gay. You guinea prick so many times. I thought that was my name. I'll give Billy the last question, but I want to.
I want to ask you, Paul. Why don't you?
Wait! Shut the fuck up.
Where are you going to be next, you fuck? I'm just asking him a question.
No, he's your guest. I want to give you the last question, so I want to ask Paul, who makes you laugh?
Oh, man. Who makes me laugh? It seems like it should be such an easy question, but since I'm a comedian, it's really difficult because I guess I feel like it's like a coach watching game film. You probably watch it differently, but Eddie Murphy, I watch in awe. So when I watch him, when I mean watch him, I mean even on the couch and stuff, I would say Eddie Murphy, but cracks me up. I get a kick out of stuff like Sacha Baron Cohen doing Borat. Right. Like when he did that Borat thing, when he did that character and he went door to door with that politician and he was fucking asking to use the bathroom and So like things like that, like I wouldn't say so much stand up because don't get me wrong, but when I see stand up, I'll laugh or I'll say that's funny, but I'm watching it differently because it's it's what I do.
Yeah.
But I like silly shit, like the Sacha Baron Cohen stuff, like these pranksters on YouTube. There's one guy, you guys will laugh at this. There's a guy called Ed Bassmaster, and He's got like 2.6 million followers on YouTube, and he's got all these characters. And one of them, he's got this wig, and he wears a sweater, and he walks around with his arms like this, and he just walks up to people, and all he does is he just goes, he'll just walk up and go, and he'll go up to them in the chair, and they're like, what the fuck is this kid? He's just shaking his head. I'm telling you, you gotta watch it. I'll send you a link, but I like, stuff like that really makes me laugh. You want to know my kids, man? My kids make me laugh. My daughter is 8 years old, and she's a rip. And then doing shit like this, that whole thing, like talking to you guys on this, or some of the funny things like that I do with, like I said, my small circle of friends. That's that I like to laugh amongst my friends. They make me laugh the most.
Well, that's great. Can you make sure that Billy has your address? Because I'd like to send you a copy of If These Lips Could Talk that Billy and I wrote. It's a really good book, and I'll just send it through Amazon. It won't be signed, but you get a kick out of reading it.
I would love it, and I would love for you to sign it if you would.
Okay, so I'll send you one out of my stash. Billy, you got some closing words?
Well, real quick, you asked him what makes him laugh, and he says, as a comic, he looks at things differently. Just like as a writer, you read differently, because you're in the business and you learn. You're always looking to learn. You're always looking to see how other people do it. But W.C. Fields had a great line. They asked him, how do you make people laugh? And he said, if you're a comedian, he says, you take a guy and you dress him up as a woman and throw him down a flight of stairs. That's going to make people laugh. Because if you're a comic, if you want to make comics laugh, you got to throw an old woman down a flight. Because comics love when people fucking bomb. Like some of the things that makes me laugh the most is when I see a comic dying on stage. That cracks me up. Because I know he's going through hell.
One of the funniest things that I've ever seen on stage was a buddy of mine was on stage. And if you just stand up, you'll know this very well. He's on stage and he's having a good time and things are going well. And then he does something that gets fucking nothing. And he just goes, no, but I like you guys. So what's going on back there? he just pointed to the back of the room. I like you guys. He had nowhere to go. And it's so funny because when you can relate to that, because Billy, it's like you said, you know what they're going through. It's so fucking funny, man.
Oh, I had a guy, it was a comedy contest in Phoenix, Stand Up Live. And this guy comes out to do 10 minutes. And I went first, right? There was like 20 comics. And I went first, and I was done. I said, let me go outside, smoke a bone, and come in and enjoy the show. Now I'm coming in, I'm high. I'm sitting back. I'm done. I know I did well. And this guy comes out. His name is Arizona Lou. He's about as old as me. And he comes out with a piece of paper. And he starts reading jokes from the piece of paper, right? Now, of course, every joke he reads is terrible. Nobody's laughing. And the more he dies, the more I start laughing. Now, I'm high, number one. And the place is silent. It's like 300 people, and I start going, now he dies again, and I start dying some more. Now I'm uncontrollable. I'm laughing so hard, but nobody else in the place is laughing. And 2 fucking bouncers come up to me and said, you got to stop laughing. It's a fucking comedy. You throw me out for laughing? Are you crazy?
Oh, my.
Let me tell the folks where you're going to be next, Paul. What you got coming up? What's going on? I know you're starting the podcast with Bill Burr, right?
Yeah, we started a podcast called Anything Better. The first episode actually came out today, so you could subscribe to that. You can subscribe to the Paul Virzi YouTube channel and my podcast, The Virzi Effect. And I'm going to be paulvirzi.com, has all my dates. I'm going to Florida in March. So I'm doing a lot of stuff with the podcast February. March 24th, I'll be at the Improv in Orlando. The 25th, I'll be at the Improv at West Palm Beach. And then I'm also
Side Splitters?
I'm going to be at Side Splitters May 20th to the 23rd. 7 shows in Tampa. And it looks like I'm going to be going to Salt Lake City in June. All of those dates will be on paulvirzi.com with many more being added. And I'll be shooting my next special this year for sure. Hopefully an announcement on that will be coming in the next month or so.
Great. Derek, can you ask Paul what you wanted to ask about social media? Because you know what you want to ask, and Billy and I don't speak your language.
Can you follow us on all social medias?
100%.
Yeah. And then when we put the show's going to go out on, well, we won't say when, but just follow us and and I'll send you the links.
I'll take it a step further. Not only am I going to plug this, but when I'm on my podcasts and other podcasts, I want to let people know how great this show is, how amazing your stories are and the experience, and just how fucking funny it is, because this podcast here should explode, and it will explode, and anything that I could ever do to help, I will.
Appreciate it.
Thank you.
Who loves you, brother? Who the fuck loves you? Who loves you more than me, you fuck? Who loves you more than me, you fuck?
Thanks for being with us, Paul. It was great having you. Really great having you.
My
Pleasure,
pleasure.
Paul. It's great catching up with you, brother.
And
Love
listen,
you. Love you
I'll
to death.
do it again anytime. You just let me know.
Great. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Paul.
Paul Virzi. Thank you so much, Paul.
Thank
Bye,
you.
guys.
Wow. That was pretty good, Billy.
Yeah, he's great, man. He's a genuine guy, man. He's real, Frank. He's like you. He's real. You know what I mean? Like, I like real people. He's a real guy. There's no bullshit with Paul. You know, he's who he is. You know, there's no excuses, no nothing. This is what you get.
What about you, Billy? Are you real?
I don't know. I'm a recovering racist.
Yeah, we got.
We're back to that. We're back to that.
He can't help himself.
Always go back to the recovering racist card. You're low on material, go back to the recovering racist card.
Well, it must have struck a chord.
Yeah.
That flew by. That interview flew by. It was just interesting as hell to talk to Paul. He's a funny guy, and like he said, the stories are great. You know.
Well, next week we've got Hillary Bailey Smith on. She's a great producer, actor, soap opera star, 25 years. She'll be a great, a next in a great array of talented guests we've had. We really should be blowing up. We're, you guys are doing a great job.
Well, back at you, brother. Some of the guests you've gotten us have been remarkable, and you know, we're just gonna have more fun. The whole thing is have fun, right? That's what we're supposed to do. That's what we're doing, and people can smell it. If you pretend to be having fun, they know it's bullshit.
Yep.
We ain't pretending nothing.
And if you want to have fun, read If These Lips Could Talk, available on Amazon. You'll get a big kick out of it. I'm going to send it to Paul Virzi. I'm going to ask him to take a picture. I'm going to ask him to put it on his podcast. That'll be great as well.
Frank, I got a question before we go. So back in the day on the film, they used to put something over the screen to sort of make the lens fuzzy.
Yeah.
Do you remember what that's called?
Vaseline.
Yeah, I think that's what Billy has on his screen.
Oh, shit. How do all those Greeks find out? How do they all know?
Yeah. Well,
I don't want people to know I got the Greek disease. You know, Frank?
You've got the Greek disease of Greek disease is being cheap, motherfucker, because you don't even have internet. You've got some fucking thing. Unbelievable. You got to get a Spectrum, or you got to get a guy to put internet into your house as soon as this.
I don't want nobody in my house right now. As soon as the plague lifts, I'll do it.
Yeah, I know. But
Yeah.
as soon as the plague lifts, you're going to be driving down the hill again to the studio, and we'll be in the studio interviewing guests.
Plague's not going anywhere.
Well, I miss you, Frank. I like the hugs. The hugs. I miss the hugs, Frank. The body touches,
Yeah. You must be talking about Derek. Because I'll let you hug Derek.
I don't know what's the problem. I'm watching The Sopranos. I've never watched it before, and there's a lot of hugging and kissing going on with the Italians. So I'm not sure what happened with Frank.
They're very kissy face.
Yeah, what's up with Frank?
Big on hugging. The Irish are the total opposite. They don't even like the whole. I mean, they don't even like the whole hands in church. I swear to God.
It's interfaith hugging. Billy's not Italian. You may be.
Oh,
maybe
I see.
partially Italian, Derek, but Italians only hug Italians.
Well,
I'm Italian by osmosis. I've been around so many kids. I was married to a kitty. Osmosis, I tell you.
Osmosis. Well, I'm going to osmosis you.
Yeah, we should wrap it up. We should wrap it up.
Wow.
We're running long here.
Wow. Who are you, and what have you done with Derek?
I'm just letting you know that if we're going to have diminishing quality if we go any longer.
Okay.
All right,
everybody. See you next week.
See you next week. Don't forget to subscribe to a Mick a Mook and a Mike on Facebook or YouTube. We appreciate it. Great
And
seeing you.
That's good talk. Bye.
Bye, everybody.
Goodbye.
We'll see you next week.